Annual Reports, Nonprofits in the United States, presented by Renee K. Patrick. This slide has an orange circle with a arrow in one direction around the circumference of the circle. The orange circle is divided into three parts. One part is risk taken, is written within that third of the pie. The second third has desired results, which then leads to increased trust, which is the third part of the circle. Purpose: the necessity for annual reports. In the early 2000s, there was a significant sense worldwide about the dishonesty and improper usage of donated dollars to charities. Van and Huxham in 2003 did study those donors and their sense about nonprofits. And in their study, they found that there was a significant variation in the density of nonprofit organizations across counties in Indiana, with fewer nonprofits located in low-income areas of the state. Furthermore, in examining the nonprofit sectors of several U.S. metropolitan areas, Bielefeld 2000 found that not only did areas with higher poverty rates have lower densities of nonprofit organizations, but that these areas were also home to nonprofit sectors that were far less resource-rich in general, as cited in McDougall and Lamb 2014. Individuals who demonstrated higher awareness of the local nonprofit sector were nearly 3 times more likely to express higher confidence in the ability of local nonprofit organizations to effectively provide quality services, and were nearly 2 times more likely to express higher confidence in the ability of local nonprofit organizations to spend money wisely. Thus, while nonprofit density appears to be strongly associated with the level of awareness that individuals have of the nonprofit sector, it seems to be this awareness that ultimately influences the level of confidence that they have in the ability of nonprofit organizations to operate within their communities. So this quote has to do with trust. Nonprofits need to explain and demonstrate their ability to be able to wisely represent their community as well as manage money that is given to them by taxpayers, by individual donors, and by its own membership. And so it's a risk that these donors are taking, but they also would like desired results for that organization. And as the desired results are accomplished, then the trust in that organization increases. Annual reports are a reflection of that spending, of what those results are. And so that is the purpose of annual reports. So what annual reports do is they have transparency for nonprofits and also allow for the public to understand exactly what the organization is doing with the money that it is promised. So annual reports give governance structure, organizational threats and risks, and they also provide information on spending and financials. And on this slide, there are 3 people that are really just ink drawings, and underneath them is an arrow that is showing an upward direction. So in terms of the governance structure, an annual report has to explain how the nonprofit makes decisions. Salterio and Legressley in 2010 described the best annual reports, including that have to include an explanation on how the nonprofit is structured and governed. They also recommended that organizations need to do a much better job of identifying, assessing, monitoring, and informing the reader of their key risks, issues, and challenges. So an example of this is, more specifics on this is, how will funding decisions, especially cuts, be made by the federal, state, and or local government, or loss of donations impact the organization? So being truthful and honest about those sort of cuts is important to a really good annual report. Also, an annual report has to talk about how the organization reviews and manages those risks, financial and also non-financial risks. And then you have to have a description of a contingency plan. What are the mitigating factors that you're going to add as an organization? And then lastly, in the spending and financials, any financial information has to agree with audited financial information. You also want to publish the auditor's report with the complete financial statements. You want to describe your fundraising goals and costs. And in those fundraising goals and costs, you want to give clear and understandable reasons for fundraising activities and report on the yield from the fundraising as compared to the goal and explain any significant variance. Again, going back to trust. So focus on annual reports. Think about the annual reports and what their audience is. The audiences are donors of all types, constituents, legislators, government entities, foundations, prospective volunteers, and corporations. Joan Gary, author of Joan Gary's Guide to Nonprofit Leadership, recommends, quote, run basic focus groups, end quote, of the organization's stakeholders. This will help lead you to find out what interests your audience, and then it will help you to define your communication strategy in your annual report. This next section is talking about communication strategy, how to report. So in terms of style elements of your annual report, you want to make sure that there's accessibility. So on the internet, we have some resources here that talk about how you want to select on the internet, web accessibility evaluation tools. Also, we have resources here on language, one quick tip about 5 steps to plain language. And then in print, you also want to consider accessibility. Best practices and guidelines for large print documents used by the low vision community. It's authored by the Council of Citizens with Low Vision International. And so when you think about things that you're putting together for your annual report, you really need to think about, is it an approachable document for anyone to access? Mm-hmm. Also, you want to make sure that it's representative. So here is a photograph of people with various mobility devices, of various skin color, of various genders that are standing together in a group. And so you really want to make sure, they also have different kind of hair types and hair color. So you just want to make sure that you're including all sorts of people that are represented by your organization, so that you're really including everybody and not turning anyone away. And then also in terms of the content of your annual report, this slide has a picture of sort of a green blurry background, and it says tell me a story. So what you really want to do is talk about your organization in a succinct way that brings in the person. And you want to have it mission driven. So in your story, say, what is your purpose? You want to be brief, you want to be clear, pictorial, with substance, and if you're going to use pictures, make sure to have audio description. No more than 3 messages should be an annual report. Second, You want to commit to telling stories. Don't just list your services. That's really a great way to have somebody turn away from what you've put together in your annual report. And make it about the donors and the sponsors who are contributing to your organization, the ones that are helping you make an effect, which could also include your members. And it's not about you as the leader or the writer or the staff of the organization. You have to shine outward and draw people in by describing who they are and how much they have contributed to you. That leads us to an important point, which is showing people gratitude. So those folks that have contributed to your organization from the external, so the donors, the sponsors, the customers, you want to show gratitude to the members, all of them that have made your organization possible. And then you want to make sure that your audience and tone is considered in your story. And also determine your communication strategy ahead of time. Don't have any more than 4 messages. So make sure you stick to that 3 points. And you should also have a high-level introduction or an executive summary. And then lastly, have fun with your annual report. And here's a photograph of a young woman who is using a Able Gamers Foundation assistive technology, and she's in a wheelchair and she's smiling very brightly. So you just really want to enjoy yourself, because that'll come through in your annual report. Thank you so much.